Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio.
I'm A.C. Lamberty.
I'm Kat Spada.
And this is the podcast that asks you to be critical of the media you love.
This season, we've got some fun new segments where we're discussing what we're watching, reading, and freaking out about with special guests and more surprises.
Today, we are talking about The People's Joker, a supervillain parody film from the twisted mind of filmmaker and editor Vera Drew. Vera plays a character who grew up in Smallville before escaping to the big city of Gotham, where she pursues her dreams of performing in the only state-sanctioned comedy program allowed in the Batman-controlled dystopia, UCB Live. Along with Penguin and a group of other DC villains, she establishes an illegal club for anti-comedy where she becomes her new self, Harlequin the Joker, experiences her first romantic relationship with the complicated Mr. J, and fights against Batman, surveillance, mommy issues, and Lorne Michaels.
Gotham City is nothing but neon biker gangs, leather freaks, and cross-dressers. Is that what you want? Come home!
No, I won't, Mom. I'm gonna be a comedian. When I look back on my life, before going jokeman to Harlequin, so to speak, I wasn't even sure I existed.
Boy, I've developed an experimental treatment.
You'll be Mama's happy little boy.
Also comes in rainbow for pride.
The film, which is a pastiche of live-action, green screen, and animation sequences ranging from 2D digital art to puppetry, began as Vera Drew's effort to re-edit Todd Phillips' Joker and cut existing Batman movies into a self-portrait of gender, comedy, and mom issues. That was a quote. Crowdfunded and crowdsourced with contributions from over 100 artists, the film also has some voice cameos from major figures in the comedy scene because of Vera's previous work as an editor on shows like Comedy Bang Bang. Maria Bamford, who voices Lorne Michaels himself, Bob Odenkirk, Scott Aukerman, and Tim Heidecker support a cast of actors that make up Harlequin the Joker's dystopian fantasy. I'm so glad this movie finally came out.
Me too. Okay. The context of the release is very funny to me. I was at a screening with the Q&A. I don't know if you were as well. But the story behind The People's Joker's release is that it was slated to be premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2022. On the red carpet, the team was given a cease and desist from Warner Brothers because they were using unlicensed DC materials. After 2 years of legal battles, the film is now being distributed by Altered Innocence, which is an imprint of Vinegar Syndrome, I think. But there is so much legal text in the film. The Q&A was opened with a legal introduction. It's very funny. It's safely under parody law now, at least.
That's good. Well, before we get too into it, I have a friend, Lisa, who had to drive over 2 hours one way to come to a screening of The People's Joker. And she did this twice in like the span of a week.
Oh my God.
So I asked her if she would send me a voice note that we could discuss about like why this movie spoke to her, in particular because of the alt comedy side of things. So now you will hear a lovely missive from my pal Lisa.
All right. First things first, I'd like to thank Catherine for inviting me to record this clip for her program. I'm super proud of her for keeping this podcast going, and I wish her only the best in these future episodes. But basically, long story short, she got a hold of me because I am, to use the correct parlance, the most Joker-fied individual she can think of when it comes to this film. I have made 2 separate 4-hour voyages out of Central California to see it in Santa Monica, both of them Q&As with Vera Drew herself. And just as a matter of reference, I grew up in LA with all of these different alt comedy references as things that I also idolized growing up. I was a teenager in the Tim and Eric era. I watched SNL every week. Human Giant was a personal favorite of mine. It was a goal of mine to do UCB throughout the years, which in and of itself is not that strange of a thing, but seeing it represented so one-to-one in this movie basically made me feel the first time that I watched it like I was having a manic episode, like I was projecting my own thoughts onto the screen in front of me instead of actually watching the movie, which was a feeling that was dissipated at the Q&A by watching all of these other queer individuals, all these other trans women, all of these people who have been watching the same movie that I have, who have been infected in the exact same way that I have, go up to Vera and voice their own comments and voice their own emotions regarding this movie. It's really quite beautiful. And you have this kind of moment where you realize that this story is more universal than you immediately think. And that feeling stuck with me for days, the whole week, in fact, to the point where I go back a week later to see this showing the next Saturday, where I was 100% certain that this movie is now a masterpiece. The comedy is so good, it's so fast. It is that Airplane style where if it doesn't matter if one thing fails because three things are coming up, but it also somehow finds the time to be this tender, heartbreaking thing about abuse in relationships, be they straight or T for T, about acceptance from family, about all of these things that are unfortunately on the bad end of Universal, these kind of things that everybody can relate to even if they don't want to. And being able to synthesize those two tracks into one very visually loud, very inventive throughout movie is a act of absolute genius on Vera Drew's behalf. Which, it was such a beautiful thing that it actually relit my love of comedy after a decade of thinking that there is no place for me anywhere. I watched this movie and I was like, oh my God, this is it. Which is like having a movie like this relight your love of not only the thing that you've always wanted to do, but life. It's basically the best compliment you can give something like this, right? I think that's a little bit nicer than a high Rotten Tomatoes, somebody saying that like it makes them want to live again. But there's no other way for me to really put it. Anyways, I'm sure you have a lot more intelligent opinions about what you just watched than I did, so I will go ahead and leave you to it. And thank you very, very much. Have a great day.
Well, Lisa, you're wrong, and I'm about to tell you why. just kidding, obviously. But yeah, I just thought, like, what a thing to bring people out to the theater after all of this time of trying to get this movie made. And yeah, I mean, I also thought it was kind of a masterpiece, which shocked the hell out of me.
Yeah, same. I mean, second and thirding, like everything in that voice note, honestly. But I also, I went into it thinking it would be kind of bad, good, that it was like a novelty thing to see, you know what I mean? But I think it is kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, I really think it's, especially as a piece of independent cinema, like really fascinating and important.
So I just went to an afternoon matinee that didn't have like a Q&A or anything, but I have to say the energy of being in like a crowded theater for a 4 p.m. Sunday showing, because, you know, they're playing it at art houses or, you know, different places where everyone was like pumped to see this indie film that had been pieced together and crowdsourced. And there was like maybe 2 minutes when the movie started where I was like, is like the animation clashing with the visuals going to like make this a tough sit, you know, for a theater? Like, is this a movie I would rather watch on a laptop? Like, I had that brief moment that you might ask of like any kind of lower budget movie. And then immediately I was like, the dialogue is making me laugh. The story is interesting. And I'm like on board for every time there was a new animation style introduced. It was like cool and weird and funny.
Completely. Yeah, I guess speaking to the animation, so for those who are not aware of more of the origins of this film, so Vera Drew, the director, put out a call for artists to contribute to the film as like set designers, animating characters, animating specific sequences, etc. So the result is kind of a crowdsourced, extremely disparate animation style that is so cool and so individual. And like, it just in the Q&A that I attended, she said that it came from a lot of people in the fine art world who have really no desire to work in film and television, but are really big fans of like Joker and DC and like, or comedy fans or whatever, and were able to lend themselves to this project. And it just gives it such a like a distinct and special feel. It's incredible. I don't know.
And I saw this movie with my partner, who's a certified dork and owns a large amount of Batman toys and ephemera. And the way that both of us came out of it, like, I don't have a deep Batman knowledge, but both of us came out of it being like, oh my God, can you believe that this was in there? Can you believe that the story like went here or there? And he was like raving about it. As you said, you were like, oh, he's going to love it.
Yeah.
But how, for me, as just more of like a cinema person, that I was like, oh my God, I love that we're making fun of the Jared Leto Joker.
Yes.
We've got like references to Batman from the 80s and 90s. It was such a lover of like comics and a character. Just there's that portrait, then there's the portrait of gender, then there's the portrait of the mom, which is like really well done.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, on the Batman stuff, I mean, let's start there. It's fucking hilarious. I am really not a superhero Batman, like, knowledgeable person at all. But like you said, it still hits. It still works so well. Shout out to whoever the guy is who played Penguin.
Yes.
Like, hysterical. So funny. And like kind of effortlessly, perfectly cast. At the Q&A, Vera said that he barely read the script. And it shows, but like in a very positive way. I loved that specific reference. Any standout kind of Batman references or jokes or anything to you?
So there are times in my relationship where my lovely partner, who does have ADHD, will start talking about something from comic books that I have to work kind of hard to stay engaged on that topic. But he had told me about Mr. Mixie-Plitnick or whatever.
Yes,
it's like an unpronounceable name.
I was like, I know that name, but where from?
It's like, it was supposed to be sort of a cute joke in the comics that there was this pixie character who had an unpronounceable name, and then eventually they put him into a cartoon, so they ended up having to like come up with a way that it could be said. But that it's Mixie-Plitnick, so that they changed it to a non-binary honorific of Mixie-Plitnick or whatever. It was so funny, like just taking all of these like little in-joke comic book things. The Penguin was so funny. That guy was hilarious. There is this very unique character actor who plays Ra's al Ghul.
Oh,
and anyone,
every time he was on screen, I was like in tears. Hilarious. So funny.
That guy, if any one of you listening has been to the Hollywood Bowl, that guy does like a puppet act outside the Hollywood Bowl many nights in the summer season.
What's the act?
Unclear. But I did like end up looking at his website. He has albums. I mean, he's a prolific guy. I think he was on Tim and Eric, which is maybe how he's related to this world. Really just like, I was very honed into the Jared Leto send-up and the send-ups of Todd Phillips, of like the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, because there are a couple of just kind of visual references to it, like referencing the costuming and like a Joker in a red suit. I guess I'll make it work. And then doing the little staircase dance. Like,
totally.
I only hope that there's a sequel to this after Folie à Deux. But
well, isn't there did you see the title card at the end that said coming next, Freddy versus Joker?
Yeah.
Like perhaps we will get a sequel.
But it was this like funny, I mean, this is what makes it work so well as just like a comic book or superhero movie is we live in a world where only jokers can be comedians, and that means like only men can be comedians, and only women can be harlequins, who are the like sidekicks that get to support the men doing comedy. This is state sanctioned in this version of Gotham City, and just like accept that that's part of it. And it's sending up the pyramid scheme of places like UCB or whatever, at the same time as just sending up like general sexism in comedy and entertainment. And then turning that all into like literally a Joker or like Joker origin story was just really effortless. Like, it was done so well.
Totally. Well, the way you say that makes me think the Jokerification coming from, and this is again deeply relatable. Also, I mean, wow, I have so many things to say, but I guess I'll start here. Deeply relatable in that the Jokerification seems to come a bit like, you could make the argument that it comes from like, yes, I've transitioned and I'm now a woman, and now I'm being seen as in a certain way, and I can use that in a certain way that I couldn't before, but I'm also subject to a new type of like scrutiny and oppression. Like, that double bind, which I have experienced in a different way being trans, is like so it articulated at such a high concept level that my mind was blown. Like, it really articulates a tension between a lot of identity experiences in such a funny way. It's amazing. And part of that, I think, is it's also sending up toxic trans guys. Shout out. It was obsessed. I loved that the main kind of Joker villain Jared Leto character was just the most annoying trans guy you could ever think of. Like, it was perfect. No notes.
Yeah, like bringing the toxic masculinity is like really filtered through this character. Like, it comes up for Batman also. Like, Batman is sort of the villain of this movie, but the way that if it was just a relationship about like emotional abuse, a movie about emotional abuse, like it really hits all of the kind of story arcs of that romance, which is at some points like hard to watch, and then at some points you're watching it and it's cartoons doing it instead of actors, which is funny.
Well, I think that's fascinating too. The use of animation, in particular, like the relationship scenes, I thought was so brilliant. Like, there's a scene where they're like having sex, or like it's an intimate scene where they're shirtless in bed or whatever, and it's fully animated. But I thought that playing with the style and format lent itself so well to that scene. It just made so much sense. It felt really vulnerable. It felt, I don't know, really specific. I don't know, just the myriad animation styles was really lovely, and I think created something so special.
There's also, I feel like this is, you and I have talked on this podcast before about, let's say, like straight actors playing gay roles or what have you. One thing that I think comes up when there's a trans actor in a trans role is like, but what's going to happen in the scenes that are pre-transition, or like if they ever need to, kind of switch up for other purposes. And this is a story, like a coming of age story. So it spans from there being a child actor playing the character as like maybe a 10-year-old or somewhere around there. And then Vera Drew playing the character as like 16 and up, maybe. And that also felt like such a superhero trope in some ways. Like a trans version of the superhero trope is like, you see Peter Parker when he's scrawny, and then you see Peter Parker after he's been bit by the spider, and suddenly he's like muscular and can do all of these amazing things. It's like, we also see this version of like the transformation that happens after being dunked in a vat of estrogen.
Oh man, I mean, it gets so much right about the early trans experience too. And in general, I just came out of the theater thinking about, how we classify movements of cinema, like new Hollywood cinema, new queer cinema, like, the kind of academic brain in that way. Like, it just feels like this is part of a really distinct mode of trans storytelling that parody is so important to. And like pop culture reference is so important too. And like the specific trans or queer relationship to pop culture. I am really excited for Freddy versus Joker, I guess.
Yeah, and like the genre connections between like queer and trans creators. It's like it should be no surprise that people who felt like a square peg in a round hole as children might have gravitated towards like weirdo niche, like horror cinema, or got really obsessed with comic books.
This film is dedicated to Joel Schumacher, which I love. Yes. That was great.
Yes. Yeah. The whole thing about like the nipple scene on Batman's suit having multiple meanings.
Sims generated Nicole Kidman imagery. Also very powerful.
Oh my God. There is so much in this movie. And there's like, they go into, also there's like this element of talking about who Batman really is, or what Batman / Bruce Wayne's motivations are. And they use the word groomer in that context. And I thought that was like that got like a lot of laughs in my theater.
Yeah, there's so much like risky, edgy comedy that like is just so fucking funny. Like the Suicide Cop being the most watched television procedural, which is just a cop killing himself on TV. Like, it's great. All of the... I mean, that's the power of this animation and stuff, too. All of the sight gags are incredible. Like, there's a lot of really good, like, news anchor stuff. It's packed, like, wall to wall.
Yeah, the jokes about, like, in a near future dystopia or a Gotham City-esque dystopia, that you would have these, like, Bruce Wayne Industries drones, like police drones flying around, and they're not only surveilling you, but they're also playing your entertainment. Like they have the screen on them that's playing Suicide Cop or Entertainment Tonight. And it was like, yeah, this is saying a lot about a lot of things, but it succeeded at it.
Yeah, I think part of that too for me was like, this is tied in with the pop culture conversation as well, is like, I thought Vera Drew just did such an amazing job at capturing the feeling of living in like a collapsing empire, basically, or like where like the feeling of like, well, there's nothing fucking else to do, so like might as well dip in this vat of estrogen, might as well start performing comedy. Like truly it had kind of a spirit of that felt extremely relatable and like of a specific time, you know what I mean? And the comedy really worked to that end for me big time.
I occasionally would get just like a flash of a fantasy of the person for whom this is absolutely not their thing. Like imagining just somebody who's maybe like, oh my God, my cousin made a movie. That's so cool. Yeah. I'm going to go see it and support her. Like, because I always support her. I'm like so good at supporting her. I'm going to go see this movie. And then it's starting and immediately being like, what? Wait, it's about
actual fuck.
Huh? Because it's like, I feel like because there's so much in this, it would be very easy to feel like, oh, I don't have a way into this movie. And yet I found my way in 100 different ways. Like that was, I think, what impressed me so much about it. Like if you told me like literally anybody was like, oh, they were in the alt comedy scene and they made a parody movie about Batman, I'd be like, I can't. I can't show up for that. But instead it was just so like charming. There was one moment that was very touching to me about calling a suicide hotline with your hometown area code and asking them what the weather is like in Smallville, just to feel that connection to childhood. I was like, that's such a gorgeous moment. Yeah.
Super well written. I mean, in general, just like, and Vera said this in the Q&A that I attended, but necessity becoming the father of innovation or invention, like being so limited in their resources, but having such a wealth of post-production knowledge created something so insane. I don't know. It just makes me very hopeful about the future of independent cinema. and what is available to filmmakers that maybe once wasn't, you know?
Well, my favorite moment is the cameo inclusion from actor Robert Wool, who is in the 1989 Batman movie.
Oh, it's so good.
At first, I thought that was Al Franken and that it was an SNL joke. And then later on, they returned to the clip of this cameo. And I started laughing. I was like, oh my God. And so afterwards, I was talking to my partner about it. I was like, oh my God, when that guy showed up again, and I realized it wasn't Al Franken and it was Robert Wool. And he's like, I thought Robert Wool died. And my first reaction was, I'd know if Arliss died. It's like, wow, my parents really did just let me watch anything on HBO when I was a child.
Well, what's the answer? Is he alive?
He's alive and well.
And it was him.
Yeah, it was him.
Amazing.
But just the way that he's like, it's this cameo that is just dropped halfway into the movie of him being like, you know, I can't legally participate in this, but I think it's great what you're doing.
He's like a trans coming of age Batman. I think that's great. Like, it's very endearing. I don't know if I spoke about this on the pod, but at the LA Festival of Movies, I saw comedian Connor O'Malley's film Rap World, which is like similar super indie, low budget comedy. Also just like buoyed completely by insane post-production, like just taking a ton of raw footage that is maybe not cohesive or coherent at all, but making something so, I don't know, kind of brilliant. It's just very cool. Much love. Respect to Vera Drew. She slayed.
Yeah. And like, I think it's having a little more road show. So it's possible that you'll still be able to catch this at, you know, art house or indie cinemas over the summer. But I feel like it'll be, I mean, I'm curious, like, how will people be able to watch it after it's done being in theaters?
Yeah.
Like,
I wonder what streaming will be like given the copyright of it all.
Right. It'll have to be free, I guess. I don't know how that works, but
Well, stay tuned. Welcome to this week's What's Wrong With Me, Kat. It's my turn. Are you ready? Are you ready to find out what's wrong with me?
I'm ready because as far as I know, flawless.
Clean bill of health.
Yeah.
Okay. So the nation is being gripped by Challenger's fever. Challengers is the 8th feature film from Italian provocateur Luca Guadagnino, known for Call Me By Your Name, known for Bones and All, sexy, young content. And in that, he often works with buzzy young stars, and he really has an eye for discovering new talent and helping them pop off. So for this week's What's Wrong With Me, I'm presenting a game for you called Luca Guadagnino's Talented Teens, in which... in which I will read you a clue describing one of the beautiful and talented young actors that he has ushered into stardom, and you will respond with who the actor is. And it will get progressively harder, in which case I will have multiple choice options for you, but I think the first few you'll be able to get with no assistance.
Okay, I feel like I've only seen one Luca Guadagnino movie before this moment, so I'm, but I'm prepared. I feel like I'll do well.
So I think you'll be able to make it work. Shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Question 1. This talented teen is the Lisan Al-Gaib.
Okay. That is one young Timothée Chalamet.
Correct. Who first worked with Guadagnino in Call Me By Your Name in his breakout gay guy role, and then was also in Bones and All, where Luca also made him do a gay scene despite his character not being gay. Wow.
I mean, would we say that's his breakout gay role? Actually, I have no idea the order of events between. The scene, they had a coming out to daddy scene in that movie that they cut it. So the extended edition.
Okay, question 2. There are recent rumors that Kylie Jenner is expecting her third child. This performer is allegedly the father of this child.
What? So Kylie Jenner is with Timothy, right?
Indeed.
But I feel like that doesn't necessarily mean he's a rumored father of her child. But the other options could be, just think for
it's not
one
Michael Stuhlbarg, I'll tell
second.
you that much.
I mean, I guess Timothy, or is
You're correct.
Is that too easy?
You're
That's
correct.
nuts. There's no way.
My one note here just says, "Isn't that crazy?"
I just feel like he's not about that life.
I know he's not a dad.
I mean, he's
yet.
dating. I don't know. I hope he hasn't met those kids yet. I just don't know. I don't know about that.
We'll see. Watch the space. Okay. This actor did actually invite Ellen DeGeneres to their birthday party.
Dakota Johnson.
Nailed it. Oh my God. Great work.
Wait, really? Oh my God. Yes.
Dakota Johnson was part of A Bigger Splash, which was kind of an Italian-American co-production with Tilda Swinton. And then she starred in the remake of Suspiria that he did.
Which was him. Okay, I have seen that, Suspiria.
Yes.
She loves to pop up in a, like that Maggie Gyllenhaal, Lost Daughter.
Like kind of European-esque film.
Right, where she's just like, no, I can do art house,
Madam
actually.
Web was shot in Amalfi. Which is crazy.
at least that one guy's scenes.
Okay. America's Sweetheart got their start as the character backup dancer Rocky Blue on the demented Disney Channel show Shake It Up. I have options for this one if you need them.
Okay. Zendaya. It's got to be Zendaya.
Nailed it. Perfect. Zendaya, famously the star of the upcoming Challengers, also a producer. If you're unfamiliar, she has an original song from her Disney Channel days called Swag It Out. That I actually think we should probably make our theme music.
Zendaya, famously Michi.
Zendaya of Michi. Okay. This is actually about composers, but I think you'll have a good shot at getting it. This musical duo, who have scored 3 Guadagnino films, want to fuck you like an animal, and they want to feel you from the inside.
Well, don't worry, because yours truly worked on the Lone American Girl with the Dragon Tattoo remake, which was scored by Trent Reznor and what's his name?
Atticus Ross.
Atticus Ross.
You're fucking killing this. Okay. Sufjan Stevens scored Call Me By Your Name, which I do want to shout out, but they haven't worked together since then, so I'm assuming Bad Blood. Just kidding, but that would be funny. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did Bones and All. They're doing Challengers. And then Guadagnino has another movie coming out this year that they did called, it's the William Burroughs adaptation Queer, starring Daniel Craig. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And my final for you. This talented performer has a taste for human flesh that his PR team will never be able to overcome.
All right, this was the easiest of all questions. As you know, I'm a Poirot head from the jump, so I wanted there to be an extra long Armand Hammer version of Death on the Nile. Obviously,
Incredible.
JK, all of that, but yeah, what a career! What an interesting trajectory.
Armie Hammer cannot escape any of the allegations ever.
Just imagine having the deck of cards that you have as Armie Hammer, the generational wealth, the looks, the ability to be in Oscar
Some might even say talent occasionally.
Some might. Look, he sure did play a character in Sorry to Bother You.
Oh my God. I remember reading a blind item during Call Me By Your Name's kind of press run during the Oscars that he found out that he was not nominated for Best Supporting Actor in Call Me By Your Name and like threw a fit and trashed a hotel room, which explains a lot.
That does not surprise me. I mean, again, maybe some gossip from my old Hollywood days, but the ensemble of The Social Network also had a lot of heightened tensions about who would be respected as being a member of the cast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I tell you something? I'm going to admit something on the pod. I have read Social Network fan fiction.
Ew.
a not insignificant amount as well.
Okay. So you're an Eisenberg head from way back?
You could say.
Well, I'm glad that you admitted that on the podcast.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Free.
We are going to be talking about challengers in an upcoming episode, which is why we wanted to tease you with that. I have to say, I actually was so relieved when I looked up something else unrelated about challengers, like to get my tickets. And I saw people tell you when to cover your eyes and ears if you are nervous about hearing the injury scene that takes place. Because every time I've seen the trailer for the last year since the release got pushed,
snap.
I have... it just scratches my brain with a rake. I hate it so much, but I don't think of myself as squeamish. The trailers just cut so well. So we will be back to talk about how ridiculous that scene and many others.
As Zendaya as Tashi Duncan in Challengers might say, come on.
As Rihanna Robin Fenty might say. Oh my God. It's all been leading up to this, AC.
I can't wait. Well, thank you for indulging me with this game.
And the answer to the question, what's wrong with you, is QED.
I'll take it.
That's our show for today. I'm Kat Spada, and you can find me at cat_EX_machina on Twitter or at CatXMachina, no underscores on Letterboxd.
I'm A.C. Lamberty. You can find me at A.C. Lamberty on Letterboxd and Instagram.
Feminist Frequency Radio is hosted and produced by us and edited by Rob Pera. Be sure to follow us on all the socials at FemFreak, including our new Letterboxd page. If you like the show, please help other people find it by subscribing, rating, and commenting on your favorite podcast app.
Thank you so much for listening.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.